The device that people use to consume these types of
and others from the European countries to come out and do just exactly what you did there. Observe the demonstrations on a regular basis. Have people, diplomats, in the field. Not very many hands for a bunch of people that, you know, don't use it.
say about the foreign media company.
I think catalyst is the key word for social media here, because when we're talking about Facebook and Twitter, these were not Facebook and Twitter revolutions. These were revolutions, I think, as the panelists pointed out, were driven by personal needs, personal disappointment and frustration with their governments, the lack of responsiveness to the problems of unemployment, poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunities, really, in these countries. That's what really drove these revolutions. What Twitter, what Facebook, what the social media is all about is being the catalyst for this, bringing people together, like-minded people who can share their interests and easily access the ideas of other people and share their common interests, their common concerns for all of this. This is what happened. This is the role that the social media has to play. It's a connection point between mainstream media, if you will, and the people, a larger group of the audience. The audience is now talking back to the mainstream media. There are many different ways that we apply standards to social media. We have a social media policy at CNN that determines how we use it as journalists. And one of the feelings that we have is, in a sense, if whatever I'm going to write, whatever I'm going to say on social media, I treat it as if I were doing a live broadcast. I've been asked a question and I'm responding live on television. Now, if I wouldn't say that live on television, I shouldn't be using it on social media. In other words, I should be convinced of the truth of that, not just mindlessly repeating something that I heard on Twitter. Another way that we have of applying standards to it, for instance, YouTube videos. Before those can air on CNN, they have to go through a special panel that examines them and tries to determine whether or not this is really what it purports to be. Because we have had instances where, for example, a picture surfaced that purported to be Osama bin Laden after he had been shot and killed. Actually, it was a demonstrator, someone who had been killed in a photo that had been doctored and a photo that had appeared on the internet much, much earlier. So we avoided that by having a standards committee of people to look at that and judge it. And there is always, as you have heard many times on CNN, a disclaimer. We can't verify that this was shot when they say it was shot, where they say it was shot. We have to put that disclaimer in so the audience knows this isn't our material. We think that there's a very good possibility that this is accurate, but we are not 100% certain. I think that's required too. We have very clear standards that we look at. In other words, I will not tweet something unless CNN has verified it. If CNN is reporting it, then I can tweet it. I can post it on Facebook. And so many times we have to hold something until it will appear on the web page or until we begin to broadcast it and report it, because we absolutely try to verify things. We have what are called iReporters. It's social media. It allows people, our members of our audience, to submit their own reports. Before any of those air, we talk to them, each and every one of them personally, on the telephone, verify that number, make sure they are who they say they are. Credibility is what we in the media, we in journalism, are really selling to our audience. And if you damage that by being sloppy, by not paying attention, by not verifying and getting another source, I think you take huge risks, unnecessary risks, and risks that can really lead to deceiving an audience that is not going to be very forgiving, nor should. It's a tough question, because on one hand, as a journalist organization like IPI, or even as an outlet, a media outlet like CNN, we want to stand up for people's rights. There's no doubt about that. But defending a journalist is probably different than defending some of the other people. I think in a very broad sense, I'm for standing up for them. Certainly telling their stories. That's one thing I think that we can do. And then posing the question to our audience and to a wider number of people, you know, what is the circumstances of this person's ordeal? Is this fair? Is this just? Much in the same way we do when we're reporting on other stories. Because I think people, this freedom of speech doesn't apply just to journalists. It should apply to all citizens. And that broad, if you don't have freedom of speech, you're not going to have freedom of the press. The two are very closely linked.